The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning, good Easter Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source, presented this week by Renewal by Anderson. We'll tell you more about our new sponsor in a minute. Appreciate you joining us. You know, we're in our 14th year. This fall will be our 15th football season. We've got our own little Sports Source family here. It's spring practice, so it's not like we can do a tape show. So I always appreciate those of you joining our family on Easter Sunday to talk a little bit about the Vols. And we're going to talk a lot about the Vols today. Tons of Tennessee football topics, A to Z. We got it all covered. Let's dive right in. This first segment brought to you by Renewal by Anderson. And we are indeed proud to welcome in another big new sponsor today. This show, I've told you before, it's not some corporate behemoth. So when we say to you that someone is bringing this show to you, we mean it. These aren't people just throwing ads into the day parts and they just filter down and this one runs in this show and this one runs in this show. These people believe in this product. These people bring you this show every week. Hope you'll go by and see them and thank them. I know you do. That's why so many of our clients have been with us 10, 15 years. Renewal by Anderson, great April deal right now. Buy 4 windows, get a 5th free. Check out renewalbyanderson.com to learn more. All right. Want to welcome in the first wave of panelists. It's the wave of panelists today. Next week, next Sunday, we'll have 2 or 3 waves of panelists. It'll be a big show after the Orange and White game. Bob Hodge, Josh Ward, Mike Griffith, Chuck Cavaleris. Good to have you guys with us. Want to start with, it's almost a carryover from last year. Tennessee has nearly 20 people banged up right now. All right, there's a reason they're not going to scrimmage anymore. They got too many people hurt. The other day, they finished with no scholarship tailbacks on the field after John Kelly tweaked an ankle. Now, most of these new injuries, you know about the injuries coming into spring that would carry into fall, but most of these new injuries aren't big enough that you're going to worry about will they be ready come September. Still, for a program that went through as many injuries last year, how concerned are you that you seem to be battling this again, especially in a year when you needed to really fill a lot of holes? You needed to figure out who was going to go where. You're having a hard time doing that. Guys, how concerned?
Scale of 1 to 10, 9.
That bad?
Here's the deal. How many guys did you have miss playing time last year because of little teeny tiny injuries? I mean, they weren't serious enough that they missed 4 or 5 games, but they missed time. And I think you've also got so many new coaches in there. The fact that you're not out there getting reps with them hurts. But go back to last season, and I think that's what hurt you. Is last year it was not just the huge injuries that brought you down; it was the little tweaks here and the sprains there. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's very concerning.
Yeah, I'm concerned probably to the level that I should have been a year ago. Going into this past season, I think in August maybe you asked this question about this past year's team, and Bob expressed at that time that he was pretty concerned. I said, I don't think it'll end up being a big deal. We'll look at how things played out over the course of the season. Also because this spring you have guys that are out that you would like to have in there, and as you look at the roster the way it is right now with guys injured, it's a reminder of some depth concerns that you have. Mm-hmm. So if these injuries do carry over into the fall, you have a lot of question marks.
Including the guys who you knew were going to be out this spring anyway, and then the new guys. You've got serious concerns at linebacker, tailbacks, which I mentioned, offensive linemen that are out, defensive backs that are out, D linemen that are out. And when you've got a lot of starters to replace, a lot of people you got to figure out with the new coaches, that does not look good. You want those guys out there. Mike, Chuck, how big of a concern is this?
I think there's a silver lining to this, in that the guys that are out are primarily projected starters and guys that had experience last year. And so a lot of these younger players are getting a lot of repetitions on account of these players being out that maybe they wouldn't normally get. And that was a silver lining to last season as well. With all the different starting lineups, so 11 in the secondary, 7 on the offensive line, 8 at linebacker, 7 D-line. A lot of players got a lot of experience, so that mentality that last year was the year, well, it was until it wasn't, and because it wasn't, all these new players got experience, and so maybe this year isn't as much of a drop-off, Chuck, as we thought it would be last year. If you can follow
a positive stand on injuries.
Yeah.
Well, anytime I hear the words injuries and cancel scrimmage, I think it's a concern. And yeah, I mean, it helps to build depth, but what are you going to do? Start recruiting in the student body for running backs so you can have practice?
Well, you had 4 walk-ons out there the other day.
I mean, it has to be a concern. And just like Josh said, we were in agreement, last year it's no big deal. You know, just like Mike said, it gives you a chance to build depth. We hear this next man stuff up all the time. Let's see it. Well, we saw how that turned out.
Yeah, when you're having to go, it's not so much last year you didn't just get the next man up. You got the next man up behind the next man up who was also behind another next man up.
Next man up.
Yeah.
At that position.
Does this change now? I'll be honest with you. You guys may disagree. I looked at it last year. I thought the problem with the strength and conditioning coach and the fact that you didn't really promote an A1 guy was the fact that you simply weren't as strong. Said as soon as we watched the Appy State game, these guys are kind of pushable. You can move them. I'd never thought you could blame the injuries on the strength coach last year or lack thereof, because to me, it wasn't all sprains and pulls and muscle injuries. If you get a string of that, then you can say, okay, there's something with their workouts. But you had concussion, shoulders, knees, ankles, muscles. It was a little bit of everything. Any of you guys think that it put a little bit more of the injuries on the strength coach last year, and does this change your view? Because you've now got a strength coach, you've now got a new program, and you're still getting injuries.
I really don't think it does. I think that you go and if you took every injury that Tennessee had last year, you could probably point to 25% of them and say, yeah, that might be a strength and conditioning kind of thing. But when a guy gets a hyperextended knee or things like that, I don't think you can point at the strength and conditioning coach. I thought the biggest problem last year with it was that they looked weak. And I think if it was the strength and conditioning coach's problem, you haven't had the new program in place yet to really turn things around if it was the problem.
Now, he's been getting mail over there a long time in the strength and conditioning office. I mean, he's getting mail for 3 months before he took the job. But you hadn't had enough time to really implement a lot of things. Khalil McKenzie, I heard, might have been because it was a pec, and they thought that might have not had much strength as you'd like to have. But overall, you haven't had the new guy in place long enough. I've heard just as much about new tackling rules. Their concern over there seemed to be that had as much as strength and conditioning.
Well, how about style of play, John? Something you brought up quite often, and I'd agree with. You had these defensive players that were playing special teams. That's where Jalen Reeves-Maven got hurt in those open fields. We've heard for years that special teams has a higher incident rate of injury. And secondly, when your defense is playing 90 to 112 snaps a game, there's more opportunities for injury, especially once we have fatigue set in. Yeah. And it's defensive guys exclusively on special teams. Butch Jones has addressed that since last season.
Defensive guys specifically on special teams or exclusively on special teams, that's a little odd. My issue, though, last year wasn't playing starters on special teams. It was you took your most important player going into the season, in my view, Jalen Reeves-Maven, who was already banged up, and you put him in special teams. That's literally asking for it. So that was my bigger issue. Let me put up a tweet. UT Football put this out yesterday. That's their tease for the orange and white game, and it's in big highlighter pen. Game. All right, Josh, I'll finish with you since we're a little behind here. The program has caught some heat the last few years because it's not an actual scrimmage. It's duck, duck, goose, and the circle of life, and throw the ball into a can, and all this other stuff. Okay, I don't. People used to complain about the scrimmages too, so it's just something to complain about. But knowing you've got the injuries right now, if you're Butch Jones, do you continue with the circle of life for everybody, or do you try and put together some sort of scrimmage to make the fans happy?
See, I've thought for the last couple of years I would try to make it a show and entertain the fans best way possible without real football. If you want to do circle of life, they're already doing that in practice, so do that. Those are one-on-one matchups that they can put up on the Jumbotron and fans can see that and then get excited. Then I'd play music and I'd run some things that are low risk in terms of injury.
It's the Sterling Hinton show.
I mean, yeah, and absolutely. Let Sterl do his thing out there. But you can do a scrimmage and have guys put up stats that don't really mean anything carrying over to the season. In the end, I'm just trying to get out of there healthy.
I don't disagree with you because the thing I've said for years, when you do one of those scrimmages, boy, the offense looked good. Did it, or did your defense just look bad? You never know. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Tennessee's defense. Bob Shoop says he wants to run more 4-3 this year rather than the 4-2-5 they used so much last year. Can they? Will they? Should they? Why would they? We'll discuss all of them.